Hello, everyone. My name's Rach. I'm a very grateful, recovered alcoholic and addict, and I'm so happy to be here with you. Friday night, Big Book Study. Yes, 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 yes. We are on page 73, which means we're just kicking off with our step 5. We'll just do a little review of where we're at. I'm so grateful to Howard for taking the book study last week. It's such a gift to be surrounded by big book people, who are really into this literature. And I'm certain that it was a brilliant study. So he actually went over pages 72 and 73. But just as a little recap, so chapter 6, we're into action. That word action, it's a doing, it's not a thinking about, it's not a talking, it's not, in my book I've got not feeling, not thinking, it's into action. And just whenever I read a new chapter with a sponsee, I always take them back to the actual steps that we're on. So if you want to follow along on page 59, we're on step 5. So on 59, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So notice the order that it's in: admitted to God, this energy, this spirit, this whatever our conception of God is, already knows, right? Already knows. To ourselves, we already know. And then the humbling part, to another human being. And notice that it says the exact nature of our wrongs. So it's not saying the circumstances or the events. It's talking about the nature of our wrongs. The whole point of this is to really understand what my character defects are. What are the things that are objectionable to me, that are blocking me off from the sunlight of the spirit? And just some points on page 72 and 73. It's saying here that it's not easy for us to do. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. I'm just on 72 doing a little recap. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. So if I am the problem, if my thinking is the problem, if I understand fully my illness, that I have a mind, body, and spirit malady, I have an insanity of my mind that makes me believe that I can drink and use like other people. And I have had these warped goggles on that make me look at life events like poor me, it's you're the problem. So in step 4, we've really thoroughly gone into what our resentments are. We're doing this massive house cleaning. I'm going to do this little analogy for you because I found it really helpful, and it kind of stuck in my mind. When this guy said, imagine you're in a room full of your own rubbish. So it's what we call the madness. There's black bags, there's takeaway, there's bottles, there's fag, there's ash, there's clothes, there's dirt, there's grime. The room is a state, and you're in the middle of it. And step 4 is you sweep everything up and you bag it all up and you put it in these black bags and you put it to the side of the room, but the rubbish is still in the room. So step 4 is gathering all of the stuff. We're getting it all ready to go. And step 5 is handing it to the bin men. And those bin men don't really go and root around and pull everything out. This is how we're going to learn how to get rid of things promptly, but we just need to see it. I need to know what these character defects are, so I know what I am entirely ready to have God remove, and so that I know what I'm going to humbly ask to be removed. And the other bit on 72 that I really like, just towards the bottom of the page, is it says the best reason first. If we skip this vital step we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. I've put a question mark in there. Ever tried to avoid it? Ever tried to skip it? Ever tried to hold something back? And heard the saying, secrets keep us sick. People pick up on secrets. So I won't go over all of it, but there's so much juiciness. I'm sure Howard just went into it in depth, as he always does. So we'll pick up from where he left off, which is at the bottom of page 63. I didn't get my sign ready. Annoying. I've got a sign. It's really good. Anyway, I'll get it out next week. We must, whenever there's a must in this book, it's like, clear-cut direction, paying attention. We must be entirely honest with someone. And that all-important word, my sponsor always gets me to make that word pop as well, because if means dependent on, and entirely means absolutely, completely. We must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Well, I've put a question mark after that. Do I want to live long or happily in this world? Am I willing to go to any lengths for my recovery? Doesn't matter if I'm new in or if I'm going back through the work. It tells me over and over again what the problem is, what the solution is, and the warnings, what will happen if I don't do this fearlessly and thoroughly. To keep it simple, I just need to follow clear-cut direction. So rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons with whom we take this intimate and confidential step. So we're going to talk about this more just on this page, because this is back in the day when they didn't really have a name for sponsors. They didn't really have that. They knew that one alcoholic or addict needed to work with another. And I've heard some horror stories about, unwell people, again, sort of not following the clear-cut direction and not respecting the intimateness, the trust, the integrity that it takes. Thank you, Samantha, for doing that. The integrity and the courage it takes to be really fully honest with someone, and that honor that it is as a sponsor to listen to somebody's step 5. So those of us belonging to a religious denomination which requires confession must, and of course, will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. So again, this is not a religious program, but back in the day, the Oxford group, I'm not an expert on it, but the Oxford group was a religious group, and they used to have a little side room for the drunk squad. And so there were a lot of people who they didn't have a solution yet. So maybe their solution at that time was to go to God and to find God. And that's amazing. We encourage all kinds of different, however you want to connect. But what they also knew, because Dr. Bob was living proof, is that you can go to church, you can have a religious program. Roland Hazard was the same, if I'm correct. I know there's some big bookers on here. Faith without works is dead. We can have faith, that's amazing, but we need to work a program, a 12-step program for us to actually, be able to get free of this illness one day at a time and live long and happily in this world. So though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Well, that could be, because religious people have a kindly and tolerant view. Love and tolerance is our code. Understanding that people are just trying to do their best and people can turn things around. But now, these days, we're so lucky that we have lots of people, because they use this word understand quite a few times on this page, and that's what we have with each other is we have that connection, that identification, that step one understanding that we share the same illness and we share the same common solution. And it is guaranteed to work if, that all important word, I follow it fearlessly and thoroughly. So, of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics, and gosh, we're surrounded, and I think that's why when people come into recovery, it can become quite noticeable when you're around people that don't work a 12-step program. And that's why I've heard so many people say, gosh, I wish everyone had these 12 steps, even if they're not addict or alcoholic, because it's a way of living, isn't it? It's a spiritual way of life. There's so many benefits to it. So if we cannot or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintance for a close-mouthed, understanding friend. So there's that word again, understanding why this is so important. You know, it goes on to tell us a life and death errand, but if we skip this vital step, so we need people who understand. And I've, squiggly underlined this closed-mouthed. It's such an honor to be able to listen to somebody's fifth step and to really hold that in high regard and not gossip. We've got our yellow card, which is so important. I say to sponsees at the beginning, before doing step 5, that I would never disclose any information that they've shared unless I don't have an answer, unless I was concerned for their health or, their safety or the safety of someone else, or that if I need to ask my sponsor, and I still keep it anonymous anyway. So perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. So again, just think, whenever I read this with someone, I always like to think how lucky we are today, that there is an abundance of sponsors out there. And because back in the day, it must have been so much harder. They had to go and find people to do this vital step with. And again, this is like a little jump over to step 9, where it's talking about we cannot hurt other people and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at the other person's expense. Such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand, there's that word again, yet be unaffected. And this, I like this bit because you may have experienced this yourself. I've seen it happen a lot, and I've heard it happen a lot, where people try to ask their friends to sponsor them. And for me, I forgive me if it's my opinion, but it feels like an easier, softer way. And I kind of think it's a little bit dangerous. You kind of want somebody, and it says here in the book, doesn't it? Someone who will understand yet be unaffected. I want to be speaking to somebody who I don't really have that history with. There's a boundary of sponsor, sponsee. They're not trying to be my friend. I can't manipulate in any way. This is, let's stick to the clear-cut direction and get this stuff done. The rule, here we go. This is a rule now. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves. Oh, there's another must. Make that pop in my book. We must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. And I don't see the step 5 as being a berating thing. I always like to call it the freedom steps, because although I'm coming out with a list of my character defects, it's actually more painful, I believe, to be living a life in my character defects, completely unaware, causing myself and others more harm. So this is where, remember in step 4, it says this is a business-like inventory, fact-finding, fact-facing. It's very concise. Let's stick to it and get it done, and be, be honest with ourselves. And it says the rule is be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others, because we don't want to be making more amends, and we're not at that stage yet anyway. So notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, so great necessity, we can't do without it. It's absolutely necessary for us to do this. We can't avoid it. It may be one is so situated that there is no suitable person available. Again, aren't we lucky? We now have Zoom. Not only do I have a fellowship in my local city, my local town, but my sponsor lives in Australia. We have the pick of the globe. We can go anywhere and get this guidance. We're so lucky today. If that is so, this step may be postponed only, however, if we hold ourselves in complete readiness to go through with it at the first opportunity. I might put a little question mark in there. And it's always very telling, when working with someone, how keen and ready they are to go through with the steps. I can't make you be ready. I can't make somebody be ready, but what I can do as a sponsor is make it attractive. My sponsor said to me, do you want to be free of your resentments? Do you want to outgrow your fear? And do you want to learn how to conduct yourself in a way that means you're not going to harm yourself and others? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds really attractive, because I was in a whole world of pain. So can't force people into this, but we can make it sound like, come on, let me show you the way. Let's get into this and let's get it done. We say this because we are very anxious that we talk to the right person. And when I think about this, it's always interesting to hear people's different experiences with it. But just in case there are any newcomers on the meeting today, the right person, for me, my first sponsor was not a big book sponsor. So we used to sit and have a coffee, and then we'd have a chat about recovery, and I can't remember what we spoke about. And then she'd say, oh yeah, you've done it. So you've done step 1 then. So you've done step 2. And I was like, hey, that's fantastic. What's next, kind of thing. But I didn't have any understanding about what the steps were or what I'd done. When we got to step 5, she said, bless her heart, she said to me, you can't put your children on your inventory because they're children. And I was like, but I was so confused, because I was like, but you've asked me to say who I'm resentful at, and my family is on my resentments list. So there was another thing that she said. So when we're thinking about the right person, my idea of the right person is somebody who is armed with the facts about this process. They are following the clear-cut direction in the book. They are giving me the guidelines outlined exactly as it's put in here. And they're not just kind of making it up, or I don't want to sound critical of any other way of doing it, but there's lots of other offshots of doing this. And actually the Holy Grail is like, this has worked for so many people. So for me, the right person is somebody who's armed with the facts, who follows this clear-cut direction, and who walks the walk, doesn't just talk the talk, actually lives this stuff. It is important that he be able to keep a confidence. If you can get that highlighted in your book or squiggly underlined, again, it just talks about, the closed-mouthed and keep a confidence. That yellow card, who you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, let it stay here. There's anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all of our principles. Gossip is so damaging, and it can keep people out of the rooms, and people can pick up on resentments. And it is, yeah, it's dangerous and it's unkind, and it's really important that we, you know, I do go to my tribes people, ask about step sessions and step fives, but I always keep it anonymous. I just say, I'm working with a sponsee, this came up, how would you handle it? And I think it's really important to go to our elders and go to people who have got more experience to make sure that we're not trying to be counselors in the moment. We're not trying to be therapists in the moment. What we're doing, because we're not, most of us are not qualified for that. What we're doing is in a step five, we're looking at what has this affected in me. In our inventory process in step four, our third column is how has this affected our self-esteem, our personal relationships, our ambitions, our security, and then we're resolutely looking for our mistakes. And that is what we are trying to compile when we go through this step five process. So it's important that he be able to keep a confidence, that he fully understand, there's that word again, understand and approve what we are driving at. So that just makes me think about, it's page 18 actually, I remember it. It's page 18 where it talks about sponsorship, and it talks about somebody armed with the facts. They understand why we need to do this. If we, what will happen if we don't. That he will not try to change our plan. Now, I like that bit because, again, it's a bit, I've heard horror stories around people, unwell people, then trying to control other people and trying to play God and saying, this is what you need to do, which is not outlined in the big book. And again, that can be so dangerous. It can be really challenging when sponsees come with information about relationships and stuff like that. I was taught that it's okay to share our experience, but again, we stick to the literature. We're writing down, they've written down their inventory, and what we're doing now is we're sharing that, and we're looking for, where have I been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and afraid? How have I caused harm? What were my mistakes in this process? And we're getting that, and we're sharing that as together. And the sponsor is going to highlight all of the things that the sponsee can't see. A really typical one is, where have I done these things myself? So if I'm resentful at someone, or, so there's a situation, it's like, oh, have you ever done that? And as soon as I can say, oh, well, actually I have, it's like, well, that's double standards. That's hypocrisy. That's one of my character defects. I'm now being judgmental. I'm being critical. I'm having double standards. I'm being, so it's a beautiful process. That it's magic the way it works, because you literally can feel the resentments like fall away at times. And there's actions in here like the forgiveness prayer for those stubborn resentments and fears and sex conduct that continues to niggle away at us if it doesn't get wiped away through this process. So that it will not try to change our plan, but we must. There's another must. I've got to get my sign out for next week. But we must not use this as a mere excuse to postpone. Yeah, so, and we could even put a little question mark there. Have you done it? My first step 5, I postponed it. How free do you want to be? This is the freedom steps. The longer I stay in step 4, the less time I'm getting into the solution. I was listening to Paige F. I love Paige F's book studies, and he pointed something out that I sort of hadn't really noticed about the velocity of the steps. And we've got 4 chapters, haven't we? We've got the doctor's opinion, Bill's story, there is a solution, more about alcoholism is predominantly step 1 and bits of step 2. And then we've got we agnostics, and that's like step 2. And then we've got what have we got next? Let me just not how it works. And then we've got steps 3 and 4, and now we're going into action, and we've got step 5 to step 11. So it's like they really think about that foundational step of step 1 and that mind-blowing, let's get out of our prejudice of step 2, what we think this conception is. Step 3 and 4, turning our will and our life and launching into action. And then now it's like it speeds up. Now it's like, come on, let's get into this. So no excuse, let's not use this as an excuse to postpone. And again, I hope I'm not sort of yabbering on too much, but originally my sponsor gave me 2 weeks to do my inventory. I now think that's way too long. I literally give sponsees a week maximum. The way the pioneers used to do it is they used to sit next to somebody in their hospital bed and they would write it for the person in bed. They would write out the person's inventory. Who are you resentful at? Let's go. What are you scared of? Let's go. What's your sex conduct been? Let's go. Because the thing is, I know all of these things. I know who I'm resentful at. I know what I'm scared of. I know what my sex conduct has been. I'm not trying to have a therapy session with an untrained therapist. I'm trying to get this information down so I can get to the causes and conditions, and so that I can get free of the bondage of myself. I can get this awareness around these character defects that have been blocking me. I've been unaware, just always in collision with something or someone, exactly as it says in the book. So if we can get to it, it's even better, And I think that puts a rocket up people's butt. If it's like, we've read step 4 together, let's book in your step 5. I'm available in 3 days. You ready? You good? Are we doing this? And they're like, oh, it's a bit soon, isn't it? And I'm like, well, how many hours do you need? You sit down, pray, meditate, get it down, let's go. That's just, that's just my experience. But I'm not saying it's the right way. I'm just saying it's a way. So when we decide who is to hear our story, here we go, clear-cut direction. We waste no time. Action, action, action. We have a written inventory, ? And we are prepared for a long talk. Again, we could just do another ? And again, I think, that attraction rather than promotion. If I share about this, like, this is the freedom steps, let's do it. I'll share my experience with you as you share yours with me. I don't like it when I hear the fear mongering, like, oh, the relapse step and all of that. You're more likely to relapse not doing the steps. Let's get into the solution. So we explain to our partner what we are about to do and why we have to do it. Again, this is before we had an abundance of very well, sponsors who are close to this literature. He should realize, this is so important, isn't it? He should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. I mean, if that's not highlighted in your book, wow, it's so powerful. This is the truth. In my book as well, I've got How Free Do You Want to Be? Life and death errand. Because unless I do this fearlessly and thoroughly, I'm still living in the unmanageability and the insanity and delusion of my own life. Imagine that. The solution has been placed at my feet. And I'm like, oh no, I just want to postpone it. But I'm not going to get to step 12, which is having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, until I go through this process. It's a life and death errand, because even if I don't die physically, if I'm not spiritually free, I'm living trapped, still living trapped by myself and my my rebelliousness, my unwillingness to follow the direction. So most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence. Isn't that beautiful? Anyone on this meeting who has done a step 5 with a sponsee will know that feeling of pure, like, elation or serenity, that priceless feeling of, I've just given my time to someone, and it's like God placed that person exactly in front of me because I can see myself in them as well. And all of a sudden, I start sharing this stuff that feels like it hasn't come from me. It's like I'm being channeled. Somebody has passed on this information, and I'm sharing it with someone else, and we're both getting free. When I do this stuff, I literally get tingles. Like, I get tingles all over my body and inside my brain. It's the weirdest thing. Like, it's a physical, like, my brain actually tingles, and I'm like, yo, that's the power, like, in my brain. It's so weird. But I know that it's a physical feeling. So honored, it's an honor to take someone through. And I always find that when you're faced with a scared sponsee, to say to them, thank you. Thank you for trusting me with this process. It's an honor to walk you through this. It's like you see a bit of their, their fear and their trust. It's like it's a beautiful thing to share. So here we go. We pocket our pride. That's a good name for a meeting, isn't it? We pocket our pride. That's a good Paul started a meeting called We Pocket Our Pride and Go to It. So action. Pocket our pride and go to it. Pride is a killer, isn't it? That it stopped me doing so many good things. Pride, and go to it. Illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. So even just that language, illuminating, making bright, shining, coming out of the darkness. Every twist of character, twist is like warped, isn't it? It's like bent, twisted, part of character. And every dark cranny of the past, the things that we have wanted to push down. Remember, Howard would have covered that on 73, where it says, to the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. The inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He is under constant fear and tension. That makes for more drinking. So that reminds me of that bit there where it's like the dark crannies of the past, all the things that I have pushed down. I never want anyone to see, I never want it to see the light of day. Here we go. We're going to get into the beautiful step 5 promises now. Once we have taken this step, warning, withholding nothing. I've put a question mark there, and in the margin I've put have you. I always ask sponsees, I always say to sponsees that I've had to go through this process as well, and so has my sponsor. And there's nothing you can say that's going to shock me, and share my own experiences with them. So, it says the result was nil unless we let go absolutely. And there's lots of warnings in this chapter, isn't it? We must be entirely honest with someone. If we expect to live happily in this world, we're engaged on a life and death errand. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. So there's lots of warnings about, like, don't withhold everything. Get it out, get it out, get it out. Here we go. The beautiful step 5 promises. We are delighted. Imagine that. From the fear of I don't want anyone to know this truth about me. It then goes on to say, we are delighted. That's a good word. Happy, delighted, joyful. We can look the world in the eye. I almost want to put question marks after this because, you know, when it talks about, I can't, it's in Bill's story, isn't it? Where he says an unlovely creature in his cups. I think of the difference, an unlovely creature in their cups, like how we come into this program, and it's telling me if I go through this process, I'm going to be able to look the world in the eye. And that was my experience, you know, running to the shop, hood on, not making any eye contact, just scurrying in to get what I need and get out. And then now, there's someone, oh, sorry, there's just someone unmuted. There we go. Yeah, we can look the world in the eye, integrity, dignity. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Oh my gosh, who was amazed when they could start to do that? Just actually feeling content, being able to sit quietly at perfect peace and ease in the present moment. I remember my sponsor saying to me, Rach, you're a human being, not a human doing. Because I went from alcoholic and, you know, drug addict insanity to, and I can still be like that today. But imagine, you know, but I can also really sit quietly and enjoy those moments of perfect peace and ease. Here we go. Here's another beautiful promise. Our fears fall from us. You know, those fears that we struggled with alone, too prideful to share with someone, didn't even know that we were scared of all the things. I remember my sponsor saying, just write everything down, and me being like, well, I don't really have that many resentments, and I'm not really scared of anything. Really? That's funny. I'm scared of everything. Everything, this evil and corroding thread, it runs through our very existence. It was only until fellows showed me how to be honest about that. Our fears fall from us. Oh, here we go. We begin to feel the nearness of our creator. I was thinking about this earlier, capital C. Does anybody remember feeling like hearing the birds singing after coming into recovery and just being like, oh my God, firstly, I can hear them and I don't want to shoot them. Sorry. No, yeah. Like, because, you know, when the birds wake up and you're like, oh no, it's not that time, is it? And it's like, no. But then it's like bird song and you're like, oh, this is very godly. Or you can hear like children laughing, or you can hear the trees like rustling, or you feel the wind on your face or the sun on your face, or you look at a bud on a tree and you're just like, God is all around me. I never noticed this before, the nearness of my creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. Isn't that powerful? I love that I love it in this book where it says begin, commence, start, because it reminds me that wherever I'm at, doesn't matter how many times I've read the book or done the steps or whatever age I am or wherever I'm at in my recovery, it's a reminder that I can begin from wherever I am now in this moment. So I love that. Begin to have a spiritual experience. And we're in step 5. But, you know, step 2 is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 1 is, you know, loads of people talk about this spiritual experience of having a step 1 experience, knowing finally, beaten into a sense of reasonableness, that they now understand what their illness is, spiritual experience. And this is going to keep on growing as we go through the steps. So the feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. Is that your experience? Can you relate to that? Look at us all here, little geeks on a Friday night on a book study. What has even happened to us? Like, we've changed. We have changed. We feel, oh, I love this bit. We feel we are on the broad highway, capital B, capital H, godly, broad highway, walking hand in hand. So that intimacy, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe, capital S, capital U. And I remember when someone reminded me, said, you know, a highway is like in America, what we would call a motorway in the UK. And I just said UK in a weird way, in the UK. And it's like the M1 for us goes from the bottom of the country to the top of the, it's a direct route that has been built so that we don't have to go round the houses. And I love that, thinking of this broad highway, we can all fit on it, but it's a direct route, hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Ah, talk about promises. I mean, wow. So then in my book, I've got a line through the book, because that's where I read that bit with a sponsee, and then we stop there and we do we do the step 5 process, and then we come back to this bit. So returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour. I've really thick underlined that hour, and in my book I've got imperative. My sponsor taught me that this bit is imperative. No phone, no radio, no chatting, no distractions, no driving, just 1 hour. Now, this is assuming that the person has been out to the sponsor's house. But that careful reflection is really, really important. So carefully, full of care, right? Carefully reviewing what we have done. And I love this bit as well. Just make sure I'm good for time. We thank God from the bottom of our hearts that we know him better. So this is very clear-cut direction. I mean, we can take this on board at any time, right? Just to carefully review what we have done. To review something means we're gonna read it, we're going to assess it, and we're going to see if we need to make any changes. And it tells us again, it says, taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. I never get that bit, because I always think, well, my book isn't like on a shelf somewhere, but maybe, I don't know, maybe they mean that they've put it away. I don't, you know, I always go everywhere with this book. Even like on holidays. Oh, Lynn's laughing. I can see now. You know, and I always recommend the sponsees take their book with them as well. You know, I hear sometimes people go, oh yeah, I've gone on holiday, and I'm like, have you got your book with you? And they're like, no. And I'm just a bit like, what? I don't know, maybe it's just me, but what if you need to refer to it? What if you're in a bit of fear or resentment, or you can't stop your recovery because you're on holiday? So taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. And another little thing, you don't have to follow me with this, but I think it's really important that sponsees know where the 12 steps are in the book. So I just always, whenever I do step work with a sponsee, I always say, can you take us to the page where the steps are at? And the first couple of times we do step work, they go, oh, I forgot, what page is it on? But after a couple of step sessions, they know that it's on page 59. And I don't know why. It's just a suggestion. You obviously don't have to take it, but I just have great respect for the book and the steps. And I think it's quite, it's just, you know, to know where they are in the book is a good place. So carefully reading the first 5 proposals. So the first 5 steps, we ask if we have omitted anything, question mark. So have we left anything out? Really, really, really important. For we are building an arch through which we shall walk, free man or free person at last. I like that it says at last. Imagine that our darkest day, our most painful place, has brought us to this, where we can be at perfect peace and ease, where we can look the world in the eye, where we can walk a free person at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? So lots of references there to, I'm just going to show you a little picture. Lots of references to building, which I always love because I love building. But I might put this in the group actually. If anybody hasn't seen that before, that is just a diagram of this arch. So we've got step 1 at the bottom, we've got step 2 is the cornerstone, step 3 is the keystone at the top, and then all the other steps are in this arch, and that's what we're building, to walk through this arch into freedom. And in my book, I've got end of step 5, because the next page, which we're not actually going to go into because it's too juicy, I think I'm gonna end the book study there. Is there anything? I will just say, because I'd love to hear your experiences after the book study. My first ever step 5 took about, I can't remember, but it was hours. It was like, I don't know, maybe 6 hours or maybe even up to 8. I'm not sure. My step 5 that I did with the sponsor took like all day. It took 8 hours. And I heard on a book study, Peter M was talking about, if it takes longer than 3 hours, and this is not to put pressure on anyone, but it's just something that I like to take from different people, and everyone does it their own way, I guess. But he was sort of saying, if it takes longer than 3 hours, it that maybe there's too much story going on, or it's not getting to the point. So I have managed to now, because when you start going through the step 5 with someone, the patterns of behavior, the character defects are usually prevalent in every situation. So it's really quite obvious to see what the really domineering character defects are that keep on coming up and up. And then sometimes if somebody's got pages and pages of resentments, they can see for themselves, like, oh, it's the same things happening in a different person and situation. So thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to stop the recording now and open up for shares back.